Welcome to South Harmon. Welcome to South Harmon. Hey, welcome to South Harmon. We glad you here today. Another AMA. Ask me anything. Super chat is cool if you wanna pay to play. Like and subscribe, that's what we really appreciate. Let me introduce you to the tear down king. Mike McNutted, ask your questions, he'll answer anything. ATM, you know I don't put them graphics on the screen. Glad you tapped in now, stay tapped in for the team. Hey, everything is posted. Go follow the socials. South Harmon FF tag us if we get noticed. Welcome to South Harmon, we glad you here today. Welcome to South Harmon, we glad you here today. Another AMA. Welcome to South Harmon, we glad you here today.
Let's go.
Let's go, man. D-Bro.
Right. That shit is supposed to play it.
Yeah,
what
it
do
is.
we do it here?
I
It's
know.
amateur hour. Derek Brown is in the house. The intro is just like, nah. We got to get right to it.
We got to get right to
Fuck all that
D-Bro, man.
music. What's up, Derek? How you doing, buddy?
Doing good, boys. Before I'm rocking with the makeshift setup. There's a 15% chance that one of my kids rolls out here and acts a fool during the middle of the show.
Let's go.
Just throwing it out there, but that's
Love
real
it,
life,
man.
baby. We out here, and the takes are going to be lit, and we're gonna have a good show, boys. I mean, look, thank y'all for having me back, man. I don't know what I did to deserve coming back a second time or third. Fuck, I've lost track of how many times I've been on here, but again, I don't know why y'all keep asking me back, man. But I'm glad to be here.
People love you.
We glad you're here today. I mean, it wasn't even us. Yeah, we didn't make the call. They're begging for D-Bro back, and you're coming fresh off the Senior Bowl. I mean, come on, man.
I mean, you're basically
Man.
the Rock of the WWE, man. It don't matter where you're at. Anytime you return,
think
the
the-
crowd's going to go wild.
Do you smell what D-Bro's cooking?
I think the only thing that The Rock and I share is the lack of hair. Past that, I think it's where the similarities kind of fall off.
I don't know, man. You've been hitting them weights. All right. I'm ready.
Hey, man, I'm trying, man. This South Harmon tea ain't gonna fill itself out, baby. Okay, that's all I gotta say.
I was about that. You looking like you're filling it out pretty good, and it's looking good on you. We got you,
Trying.
fresh off the Senior Bowl, man. Let me ask you, not to get straight into it, but how was your experience this time? How was the Senior Bowl for you this time?
Man, every year it gets better and better, baby. I love it. This is my third or fourth year going, and I love it, man. Like, that's one of the things that's funny, man. Like, after I got hired at Fantasy Pros, we were on the company trip and stuff, and like 2 days into my employment, like my first day working at Fantasy Pros was on this trip, and I'm literally like, okay, y'all know we're going into Mobile, right? Like, that's going to be a thing. I got to go to Senior Bowl, and they're like, really? And I was like, yeah, that needs to happen. And, kudos to everybody, the higher ups of Fantasy Pros, but like, man, like, I can't ask for better, man. Like, support us, send us to that every year. We just churning out content and stuff. Me, content director Mike Mayer, and Thor Nystrom, and our friend Eric Froton. We're just hammering out interviews all week, baby. I mean, look, I got things I can gripe about. We all do. But right now, it's a good time to be alive, baby. Fresh off of Mobile.
I love it. Checking in with you guys all week, right? Just following the socials, watching it, listening to those interviews, the little nuggets that you drop. But what better way to get the actual nuggets than to get the guy on who was there in person, right? We can
The
ask
man,
him
the myth,
directly.
So good.
The
good, man.
Who,
Like, every
the man who predicted
every year
Puka.
with that.
That's true.
gosh.
That's true.
Dude,
That's
I
true.
I can't tell you how many tweets I got about that while I'm in Mobile. They're like, all right, who's showing out? Who's going to be this year's? And I'm like, I mean, we can kick it off right there. I can straight up tell you all the wide receivers that were there in Mobile. There was no Puka. There was no Tank Dell. There was no that guy. Now, some guys had good weeks. We're going to talk about him. We'll go chat it up. But, like, was there a guy that went down there and just dominated, wrecked fools? Like, legit won every single one-on-one that he got set up with and team drills and just was straight balling at the wide receiver position? There wasn't that guy. Now, guys
Okay.
had good weeks. I'm not tossing shade, but it was different this year.
So there was no clear cut like standout, like holy shit, this guy just completely dominated the entire time. Okay.
Nah, man. So there's two guys that I wanted to do that while I was down there. It was Javon Baker and Johnny Wilson. Now, It's questionable if Johnny was on his way to that type of week, and we'll get into it. But his week got cut short. I don't know if it was injury or what have you, but after one-on-ones in day 2, early day 2, we didn't see him, and he wasn't practicing at all on day 3. And again, you talk about boots on the ground in Mobile. Real quick anecdote about Johnny Wilson. We were standing out in the hallway of the convention center outside the media room, like where they have like the media luncheon and all that kind of stuff and all the players, and you get to do interviews, and basically it's just a free-for-all. You're walking around the room talking to whoever is available or whoever's there. So Thor and I are standing out there with Mike in the hallway, and we're uploading videos. We're trying to get stuff over to all of our entire creative team over at Fantasy Pros. And I see Johnny Wilson, because you can't miss Johnny Wilson. I mean, 6'6", like stacked, like strolling down the runway towards the media room. And I'm like, oh shit, man, I want to talk to Johnny Wilson. I got some real questions to ask that dude. And somebody stopped him halfway towards the media room. He cut a 180 and went pew the other way, and didn't see him the rest of the week. So
really, okay, damn,
you know. Don't know if it was an injury. That's the best thing I can guess, man. But again, like, that has not been reported, so I'm not out here telling people what isn't real, what hasn't been reported. But just throwing it out there, like, I think he did get injured, because there's no other reason why he would have left or not, going into the media room and answer questions and stuff and help his stock,
Right.
Does it really feel like a foregone conclusion with him, the move to tight end?
So I kept asking people. I talked to scouts and a few of the teams, even some guys scouting college and stuff like that, about that specifically. And I didn't get any definitive answers about the buzz on that was real or not. From everybody that I talked to, they wanted to see him at wide receiver. And I understand it, man. Like, the dude's got special move skills. Like, what do I think his ceiling is? Like, if I was the dude's agent and stuff like that, like, of course, I'd be like, look, you go and work out at tight end, your size, your frame, your athleticism, because this is a guy also that, like, in high school ran a freaking 4.59. He's not going to run slower than that. Like, I don't care if you bulked up or not. Like, in a collegiate strength program, dude didn't get slower. So you put him at that type of speed and stuff. I mean, my comp going into the process was Darren Waller. I'm still there. And I hope that he does move to tight end. For me, that's where the money's to be made, man. It's like, you're 6'6", you're probably a round 3, maybe round 4 guy in the NFL draft. You're going to be straight up, like, even the premise of him working at tight end or being a tight end would make him a round 3 guy, like, straight up, just off the cuff.
So let me ask you then, if there's the potential for him to move to tight end, you saw a guy last year in Elijah Higgins who came on pretty strong towards the end of the year and started having a role with the Cardinals. Like, if you had to stack him up from the little bit that you saw from Johnny Wilson, like, and you were to project him at tight end, like, which one would you think would have made the better one coming out?
Easy, Johnny Wilson. Like, him and Elijah Higgins. This, again, I know I'm going to sound like I'm dismissing Elijah Higgins, but Johnny Wilson's in a whole different area code than Elijah Higgins. As far as even as a wide receiver, his movement skills at that size and his physicality. Like, Johnny Wilson, like, I wish we would have gotten a full week from him, because day one was okay but not great. You saw some of the limitations of his game, like physicality through his routes. He was able to sit here and beat physical corners through his routes, but they asked him to run boundary routes, try to stretch the field and stuff, and he can do that. But I wanted to see the dude running, and we saw part of this on day 2 before he left. When he was in one-on-ones that morning before he left practice and we didn't see him again, he was smoking dudes in one-on-ones, like running crossers and out routes and using his size and his leverage and his speed to sit here and get loose on the middle part of the field. And a lot of the things, if he was either going to be a big slot in the NFL or as a move tight end, the things that we were going to see more to his game, and he was consistently winning at those parts. So, I mean, shit, I would love for him to be I will still take stabs on him, even if he is going to be, like, categorized as a wide receiver. I will still happily draft him in rookie dynasty drafts. I will still draft him aggressively, because here's the thing. It only takes the move to tight end to skyrocket that type of value. And if you have those early drafts, if that's the case, you could get him at a massive value where later in the process, after the draft has happened, all these different things, you could be talking about a guy that jumps massively as far as where you draft him in 1 week or in 1 month versus 2-3 weeks down the road. he could be skyrocketing up the board either after he tests or he does move to tight end, even if that happens at some point in his rookie season.
Yeah, and I think, too, with like Johnny Wilson compared to Elijah Higgins, the big thing for me would be, Johnny Wilson just looks incredibly tall a frame, and I got to imagine that's arm length's going to transfer. Like Elijah Higgins at 6'3" versus this dude at like legitimately 6'6", 6'7". I mean, you're talking about a huge target for a guy.
Johnny Wilson looks like a damn pterodactyl, dude. Like, I mean, the wingspan is just absolutely freaking ridiculous.
Yeah, he honestly looks, from what I saw on highlights and just what clips I was able to see, he looked like, holy shit, this dude is like almost like a completely lanky basketball body out there. You could see, I think, if you go to the tight end position, he might be someone that I care about a lot more in fantasy. At receiver, not saying he couldn't do anything, but I'd be unlikely to really put a lot of fantasy stock or dynasty stock into him. If you got a chance at tight end, man, all of a sudden I'd be a lot more interested.
6'6", 240 at those type of move skills? Oh, dude. That type of athleticism, the way that I think he's going to test, you're like, shit. Sign me up, because that's elite upside at the tight end position.
I got some questions on some guys that I saw some hype on coming out of there from other people around the space. Just a few of them. And you could be quick about it. Tell me if they're still just kind of what we thought, or you were impressed a little bit or whatever, or not impressed. It happens. Roman Wilson was a favorite among Cody Carpentier. He could not stop tweeting about this man during the Senior Bowl. What did you think of Roman, seeing him up close?
I thought he was good, man. I mean, Roman, and Thor kept pressing me about it the whole time we were down there in Mobile. He's like, you need to sit here and walk back your Roman Wilson takes. And look, just for everybody out there, like, keep it in 100, I didn't hate Roman Wilson. My thing about Roman Wilson is I think he's going to be a very solid NFL player. I think he is going to play the slot. Maybe you see some boundary work depending on matchups. And really for him, it comes down to speed. Because can he get loose on the outside if he's asked to, if you're playing, especially versus zone, people playing off coverage, can he win in that way? Yes. Now, Roman Wilson, the other parts of his game is, we also did see a guy that when they did ask him to run some boundary routes, you did see him get jammed up from time to time. And I'm not saying that he can't play the boundary and stuff, but I think he is going to be a slot wide receiver in the NFL. I think, again, and this comes to a bigger point, boys, and that, like, I don't want to, and this kind of comes down to how I feel about Johnny Wilson, Javon Baker, but you can float this to Roman Wilson, Ladd McConkey, we're probably going to talk about too, guys that had really, really good weeks, in that you watch 6 to 7 games, 8 games, whatever, how much film you consume, and you look at these guys' analytical profiles. I don't want to get too far out over my skis and say, look, I'm going to sit here and chuck the entire eval that I have on this dude and in the trash.
Yeah.
Now, if there's a guy that, like I'm talking about, Tank Dell, Christian Watson, Puka while he was there, other guys that are Tajay Spears, guys that have gone to Mobile and just absolutely just eviscerated every defender that was put in front of them to have smashed. If you marry that type of week up with a beautiful profile, you put those two things together, then yes, like I'm not going to shut up about a dude. Right. But like with Roman Wilson, we also have to understand that he's a guy in 4 years at Michigan, didn't earn more than 39 targets in any season, and we could talk about all we want to about Michigan being run heavy, but also on a per route basis, he didn't cross 2.3 yards per route run until 2023. So it's not like, I don't want to get too far over my skis for a guy that in Roman Wilson that did look really damn good at the Senior Bowl. But again, going back to the profile, amongst every FBS wide receiver last year that had at least 50 targets, he was 178th in yak per reception. Like, that still needs context, even if he did smash during the week at practice.
I like it. It does really put overall into context what you're looking at, too. Sometimes we do get a little bit too over our skis on Senior Bowl, and it's good to put it in buckets, right? Like, the guy was impressive, but he wasn't Christian Watson, holy shit, impressive. He wasn't Puka Nacua, holy shit, like, this guy is going to be something impressive. So it's good to kind of remember that we can put those guys in that bucket. And you said right off the jump, there wasn't anybody that really stood out to you at that level. What about like Ladd and Devontae Walker? Like, Walker was one guy I was monitoring, big favorite of mine, coming from Kent State and then playing half the season with my guy Drake May. But like I heard some up and downs, like the early part didn't look great, but then you see some of the speed numbers and some of the times he was cooking people out there, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe Devontae, maybe he's making a little comeback. What was your takeaway on him?
So Tez Walker, and who was the other guy you brought up, Mike?
Lad
McConkey.
Lad.
So Lad had a really strong week. I think if anybody, I think Lad has more inside-outside versatility than even Roman Wilson. And this comes down to not only route running, but play strength through the route. So you see Roman Wilson, you can jam him up. If a corner can kind of get the hands on him, he can have some issues. Lad fights through that a little bit better. Now, whether he's using arm swipes, whether he's getting guys off of him, or he's leaning into guys before he breaks out on an out route, you see some more nuance to his routes and some more physicality that I think is going to translate a little bit better to the NFL. I mean, look, I like Lad. Lad had a really, really good week. And out of all the guys, he's one of the guys that, like, I think he could settle in, depending on what situation he goes to, as a wide receiver 3 in an offense with the ability to maybe grow into being a wide receiver 2 in an offense. Not a wide receiver 2 overall in fantasy, but a wide receiver 2 in an offense. And how can he produce in that realm? Then I think we're talking about the right bucket for Ladd McConkey. Like, I don't look at him as a guy that I ever project as being a wide receiver 1 in an NFL offense, having the highest ceiling at all. Like, my comp for him, and I'm there. I was there before. I'm there now. After Mobile was Danny Amendola, and people are like, man, really, like, that's dismissive. And I'm like, no, hold up now. I'm old enough to remember when Amendola had almost a 90-catch season in his second year in the freaking NFL. Now, we could talk about what he did in his career, but you cannot tell me that man didn't ball out. The problem is he couldn't stay healthy. And then he goes to all these other teams like New England, who just used a committee of freaking dudes and didn't play him as a full-time guy. So I'm not being dismissive and when I comp him to somebody like that. But, like, again, getting back to the real, I think looking at Ladd McConkey, I think he improved his stock from a 4th-round guy to a 3rd-round guy. All this stuff you're seeing, and I'm seeing mocks out there where basically, like, and this is like bigger talking heads in the industry that are putting out these mocks where it's like they basically just took the whole damn Senior Bowl roster and put it in the top 2 rounds of the NFL draft. And I'm like, nah, man, come on. No, we're not doing that.
Chill out,
like,
man. Chill out, yeah.
Like, you need to hold up now. Hold up.
Yeah,
and part of this comes back to, like, talking about Tez Walker. Tez Walker had a terrible week. Like, I'm not even going to throw it out there. Like, I'm not going to
shoot. I hate
it was a bad week, man. And this is also comes down to, like, being able to see these guys up close and personal. And Tez, I was not high on Tez entering Mobile. But again, I'm open for my mind to be changed based off of other guys, like how they perform and what I thought about their games. If you're going to show me something that I didn't see on film and show me a different skill set, or maybe you've been working on things or your build, all this different types of stuff, because there's so many freaking layers of context with it, then I'm open to changing my mind on guys, man. But Tez Walker didn't do that for me. I look at him as a situational deep threat in the NFL. He's got issues whether playing through contact in his routes. You could push him off his routes. He had drops in Mobile. You also saw, like, that when guys could body him up, like, he wasn't getting loose. And whether it was concentration drops, problems at the catch point when he had to go up and sit here and fight somebody for the ball at the catch point, he lost that a lot of times. And this also comes down to, like I said, being down there and having boots on the ground. Tez Walker is rail thin, dude. Like, legs, arms, everything. He looks kind of like a scarecrow, man. Like, he's ripped, but there's not a whole lot of muscle and stuff like that. Like, as far as, like, just packed on that frame where you can expect him to, you know, bully guys after the catch, break tackles, or deal with physical corners when they do get their hands on him.
Yeah, that's what it looked like a lot I saw was him struggling with press coverage and guys that were being physical with him right up at the line of scrimmage, which, I mean, I don't know. That's a problem, honestly, for me. Like, I feel like the contested catch stuff now, I'm not trying to dismiss it, but if the guy can catch, I feel like maybe that's concentration. He's having a bad week. He's down on himself. I wouldn't beat it up if it was just that, but if you're telling me he's doing that and he's having trouble getting off the line of scrimmage, he's already at the Senior Bowl, so that means he's, you know, not some stud prospect. I'm probably going to end up being lower on him, which kind of sucks. I was excited
and
for
I was
him.
lower on him. Yep. And I will throw this out as a caveat, though, because a player that I was extremely low on leaving Mobile, you know, going in the Wayback Machine, I was not high on Romeo Doubs at all. Like, I literally went to Mobile and saw Romeo Doubs get jammed up at the damn line where they have to stop the drill and get started over again because he couldn't even get off the line versus a corner. So it wasn't that bad. So, I mean, there's hope, and these guys also getting into the NFL, can they continue to hone their games? Can they continue to improve? Yes. We saw that at Romeo Doubs. Like, he's a much improved player as far as a route runner, his releases, all those different types of things in the NFL than anything that I saw in Mobile. So, is there still the hope candle for Tez, like in the NFL? Sure. Is that a player that I'm going to be higher on than consensus? Hell no.
Let me ask you then, because totally different than getting jammed up at the line of scrimmage. I mean, Xavier Legette, the opposite of that. What was your thoughts on him this week? A lot of questions in the chat on that.
I'm going to start it off with this. I do not think Xavier Legette was fully healthy in Mobile. And this is either, and I told this to multiple people and just talking to guys in the stands and stuff like that. First thing with Legette, he did get injured on day 3 and he left. He came back and he just watched the rest of the practice from the sideline on the early part of day 3. Now, before that, day 1, day 2, the first thing I noticed about Legette was they were running agility drills in the gauntlet and stuff, and so you've seen all the wide receivers go through the same damn thing. Legette was moving gingerly. Like, he wasn't trying to get in and out of his breaks. Wasn't trying to, just push it. Like, get through that damn thing as fast as he could with as much explosion as he could. So he was moving at a slower pace, which means, either you need to stretch or you're guarding yourself, with an injury, you're not feeling good, but you're not moving at the same speed as everybody else. Like, he's going through that drill specifically at half speed. And on day 1 and day 2, he was wearing a compression sleeve on his left lower leg. Now, whether it was calf or what have you, he did. Now, the only thing I saw reported on the injury from day 3, and take this with a grain of salt because, shit, who knows the truth? Only Xavier and the people that were there know the truth, as far as the coaches. It was reported as an ankle injury, but who knows what it actually is. But with Xavier Legette, I'm willing to give him a grain of salt with some of the things we saw because day 1 was bad, man. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Day 1 was bad. He looked slow. He looked clunky in and out of his breaks. He wasn't getting separation. It was a tough day. And even in some spots, he had a few drops. Now, day 2, he looked like a totally different cat. He was out there. You saw a short area agility. You saw him able to see some of that physicality in his routes. And you also saw him separating on a consistent basis. And I'm not telling you he won every single one-on-one rep, but if you're looking at the guy that I saw on day 1 versus the guy that I saw on day 2, look like outside of him wearing the same stuff, him looking like the same dude, as far as physically, he looked like a totally different guy. I would have sworn that it was a totally different wide receiver. So I'm not immensely high on Legette based off of my eval and some of the things. You see flashes in his game, which can he have that type of upside? Sure. But there are also parts of his game where he's got a lot of stuff left to work on, whether it's route running, whether it's gearing down on comebacks, on curls, things like that. He has to work on those parts of his game. I think there's the upside for him to do that. But as far as am I going to be above consensus on him? No. But I think he showed if he would have continued along the same path as he started off day 1, I'd have been like, oh man, I'm burying this dude in the ranks. Yeah. I'm out. I'm totally out. Just out. But day 2 gave you hope that there can be something more, and it was closer to what you saw on film.
Yeah, because he plays, at least for what I've seen, pretty fast and strong on film. So if day 1's the concern of him moving slow like that, that's automatically not good.
It didn't start out the greatest, right? Being 3 inches shorter than what you.
I was going to say that too. We're hoping for this 6'3" Rashad Bateman type thing. All of a sudden, how you 3 inches shorter, man? Come on.
I was going to say that too, and especially for a guy that in my eval, I legit wrote up, and people can go check them receipts. All my articles are still live on Fantasy Pros. I literally put in my write-up, he's a guy that moves like a bigger guy than he is. And in that sense, sometimes, yes, that can be a good thing. Are you physical? But in the way that I was framing it, it wasn't a good thing. Because I'm if he's 6'3", he's getting in and out of his breaks, and he's moving through his routes like a guy that I would have been like, if I wouldn't have known how tall he was, I would have said he was 6'4", 6'5", something like that. And then he goes and he measures at 6'1", and I'm like, oh, that's not good.
All right, we'll rapid fire a couple out of these, and then get some of these chat questions in here and get to having a real good time.
I love it, man. Real good.
I gotta ask you. We'll start at the quarterback. Penix or Nix? Who is the better out of the two?
Neither.
They both had bad weeks.
They both had terrible weeks. I'm going to go with neither. Can I say J.J. McCarthy?
There you go. Sure.
Yeah, just by not having to do anything.
I mean, no, legit. Like, I fully believe that J.J. McCarthy, after those two quarterbacks, the weeks that they had in Mobile, J.J. McCarthy has set himself alone in a tier by himself as the clear QB4 of this class.
Okay. Let me ask you then. The other one I wanted to ask was Spencer Rattler, did he look as impressive as a lot of the reports are saying?
So, I'll say this about Spencer. I think there's a lot of the things that you saw from his film, as far as like those YOLO moments, the indecision, not the indecision, but the inconsistency in the decision making, where there's literally like some plays where you're like, all right, just hold up, man, just let him cook. Like, there were those plays, and there were also ones where you're like, what the hell are you doing, man? Like, what is that? Like, why'd you do that? Like, where'd that ball go? So it was a microcosm of what you saw as far as his overall profile for Spencer Rattler. Like, the good moments were really good. There were times where you saw some of the arm talent, whether it was tight window throws and some of the mobility and the ability to throw on the run. And there were other times where, like, especially like day one, he misfired on a few passes. He pushed two balls down the field, and he threw a bad pick. And after that, on day one, it was check down city for Spencer Rattler. Like, he didn't push the ball the rest of the damn day. On day two and day three, you saw more precision, and you saw more of the upside part of the Spencer Rattler entire eval. And so I think if he would have continued that much of the up and down and just yo-yoing the entire week, I would say it would have been a loss for him, and he would have hurt his stock. But I think he put together two good bounce back days on day 2 and day 3 that are going to help his stock in the NFL draft. Like, he was probably a guy that I would have said, like, entering the process, round 4, round 5 guy, maybe a team loves him and takes him at the top of round 4. But now I think after the week he had in Mobile, I think he's in that round 3, maybe round 4 conversation, depending on how he interviews and tests and all that kind of stuff.
To me, it kind of feels like, at least from what I'm gathering, it feels a lot like Sam Howell. So what's your thoughts on that? Was it a lot like that in a way? Like, kind of showing upside but inconsistent throughout the week?
Yes and no. Now, my evaluation of Sam Howell when he was down in Mobile is I thought every year that class of quarterbacks all went to Mobile and just stunk it up. Like, it was terrible. Like, that entire quarterback group was horrible in Mobile.
Okay.
Sam Howell included. And what I'll say about Sam Howell is I think that if you put their 2 weeks up side by side, I think Spencer Rattler lapped him. I think he had a way better week than Sam Howell. And the other part about Sam Howell is, and this is where evaluating him and then being in Mobile and looking at, like, one of the reasons I think he fell, and I don't have, this is just straight up me, like, I don't have context and sources and all that kind of crap. The week he had in Mobile, literally everybody down in Mobile was talking about, oh, sleepy Sam Howell. Like, he looked like a dude that did not want to be there. Like, whether it was interviews, whether it was put him on the podium, he was just flat. Straight up, flat, monotone, didn't look like his entire mannerisms, man. And I'm like, that's a dude that's going to lead an NFL franchise? Shit. I wouldn't invest a top 3 round pick in him. And you saw he dropped all the way to it was the 5th round?
5th round,
so,
yep.
You know, as far as, like, comparing their 2 weeks, I think Spencer Rattler, absolutely lapped him. And I think the other thing about Rattler, and anybody in the chat, plus everybody out there, like, just if you ever know about his game and the history of what he's gone through in the college, there's also been some bad interviews with Spencer Rattler, times where there's been video clips and things like that where he's come off as cocky, he's been arrogant, and people have had things to say. I will say nothing but good things about Spencer Rattler. He was awesome with the media. He interviewed extremely well. He was super amazing with his time and how he dealt with everybody there. So as a guy that probably entered college and he was riding on the high horse, the 5-star, like, I'm football Jesus, life kind of dealt him a few cards that probably bumped him down a few pegs, and now he's a guy where you're just like, oh shit, like you've learned some things, and now you're handling things in a more grown-up manner, and that's something else. It's like we put all these kids, I mean, they're 20-year-old, 18-year-old, 19-year-old kids, like put on these mega stages in front of the entire country as like you are a phenom and all these expectations, man. So like some of these things, it's like we're creating our own monsters with this in the sense of like we puff up these guys and we wonder why they have a big head and stuff like that. But Spencer Rattler, like he was very down to earth, man. So props to him, man, because again, interviewing like that to the media and to NFL teams and scouts and stuff like that, you're going to get a lot of fans that way, man, because it shows that you've gained a level of maturity that wasn't there before.
Well, he had that from the jump, too. Like, if you think about it, he was the star of that Netflix series, the quarterback series in high school.
Yeah,
right. They're following him around. He looked like an asshole, right, as a young kid. But then you remember this is also a 17-year-old kid you're talking and filming.
17-year-old kid, man.
You feel me when I was 17, I was an asshole. You feel me when I'm 27, I'm an asshole. Fuck, I'm 37, I'm probably still an asshole.
Not to be like the South Harmon brand here, but I was a total shithead when I was 17, man. Like, it was straight up. Like, that's a fact, dude.
I mean,
so like, I wouldn't want anybody throwing out like interview clips of me as a 17-year-old. I'd have been talking out my damn head, man.
I mean, and sometimes you need that reality check, and if you bounce back the way it sounds like he did, I mean, that could be a really good hard dose of reality that ends up being beneficial to a young man's career. So it'd be interesting to see. If he gets like round 3 draft capital, man, I mean, I'll probably be interested in dabbling a little bit.
I'll tell you straight up this, guys. Like, as far as Dynasty rookie drafts right now, give me Spencer Rattler where he's going to go in Dynasty rookie drafts over Michael Penix and over Bo Nix. I'll draft him before I take either one of those dudes. I'm staying away from those dudes like the plague. Like, everybody else can have them. I'm fine. Superflex? Y'all take them, baby. Go ahead, man. Just let a wide receiver, running back, let Marshawn Lloyd drop to me. Like, I'm totally here for that. Y'all grab Nix. Y'all grab Penix. Have fun with that.
That's what I was going to ask you about next.
I'm out on Nix, man.
Say Marshawn Lloyd only cost a late second, early third. How many shares of him in Dynasty would you have, D-Bro? You were a big fan of his game this past week.
I'm trading into almost every rookie draft that I can to draft Marshawn Lloyd. I'm going to put that out in space right now.
Let's go.
I'm doing it, man.
D-Bro
winner. He
is
a freaking stud. That dude is a 3-down back in the NFL. I'm calling it right now. Like, I freaking loved, and this is also throwing this out here, man. Like, I liked Marshawn Lloyd. I'm trying to pull up my write-up on him. I liked him coming into the process. As far as, like, after I watched his game, looking at the analytical profile on him, because, again, Marshawn Lloyd, over the last 2 seasons at USC, we're talking about a player that legit was top 20 in each of the last 2 years. Top 20 in yards after contact per attempt, breakaway rate, and PFF elusive rating. So you're telling me this dude is a freaking stud anytime you give him the ball and say, go churn up yards, chew those yards up, run over a dude, stiff arm a dude into the damn shadow realm. He's going to do that shit. He runs, and it was so funny, man. Like, I got a chance to interview him, and I was like, I told Thor going into the week, I was like, I'm going to ask him, I'm like, who hurt you, man? Like, why do you run so damn mean? Like, you run like you got a chip on your shoulder. And he was like, look, I'm from Delaware. You got to sit here and make some noise to sit here and get recruited from Delaware. He's like, I had to go to Maryland to go play ball just to get recruited. As a guy that I firmly believe Marshawn Lloyd, and assuming he tests well, and there is nothing that I saw down in Mobile that says to me he will not test well in the short area. He will not run like a 4.5. Now, I don't know if he's going to get into the 4.4. I asked him about, I was like, what's your 40 going to look like? And he was like, you got to watch it. And I was like, fine, man. Leave us one, baby, because I need to see it. But for a guy that legit has a 3-down skill set going into the NFL, I think he will not go. We will not get past the 4th round of the NFL draft without his name called. And I think if he has a good pro day, if he tests well, I could see him going in round 3 of the NFL draft. I freaking love Marshawn Lloyd, dude, because the questions about his game leaving USC was, all right, you proved yourself on early downs. You proved that you're a beast. You proved that you consider him break tackles. All the numbers are there. That's all proven. What can you offer a team on downs? 2 days in a row, we closed with Marshawn Lloyd running routes at the backfield. It was day 2, last rep of practice. And part of this was we also got rumblings from coaches that were down there and stuff. They wanted to see all the running backs utilized in the passing game. Wonder why. Marshawn Lloyd ran a wheel route up the damn boundary, caught a basket catch over his damn shoulder, dusting the defender, and I'm like, oh, shit, okay. We're off the races, baby. I'm trading into every damn rookie draft I got. I'm drafting all the damn Marshawn Lloyd I can get my hands on, man.
I love it, man. I'm excited. I'm excited for Marshawn Lloyd.
Was there anybody else who stood out to you? Like any surprises? Maybe an under the radar guy that you didn't really know what his game was about before he got there, or even if it was a surprise on how badly somebody that you liked performed.
So, two guys I want to definitely mention here. Javon Baker entering the process when I wrote up his eval and stuff like that. He's a guy that popped in numbers and in film. I don't think that he had, and he was one of the guys, was him and Johnny Wilson, and I was hoping just exploded down there in Mobile and started the hype train, baby. And maybe you saw them rise to like the second round like Christian Watson. Javon Baker is a guy that I'm still firmly in on. He had a very up and down week. And I say this like with context that he didn't have the type of week that I was hoping he was going to have. But you still saw why Javon Baker was there. And you still saw moments where you're like, okay, this kid can freaking play. Like whether it was him setting up DBs and routes, and he's a damn good route runner, or what litters his freaking tape, high pointing the ball on back shoulder throws. There was the first or second rep on day 3 where he got loose. It was either an out route or a post in the end zone. He skies over the defender and makes one of those Javon Baker type of catches, and you're like, all right, man, I see you. You're doing the same damn things you did all throughout your film, man. So Baker's a guy that I want to highlight here. And as far as like another guy that jumped out to me, man, I entered the process and I was super high. I had him as my number 2 wide receiver in Mobile. As far as like we ranked all the guys at Senior Bowl before we went down there. Jacob Cowing really let me down, man. I was really high on him, and I've got to go back and I've got to tweak my write-up on him, because my first sentence in that write-up is, let's not get it twisted. Jacob Cowing can play the outside. He can play the perimeter, and now that I'm leaving Mobile, and again, we talk about not trying to get too far out of your skis, but getting context about how a player wins, what his skill set looks like. Jacob Cowing, the big thing I wanted to see out of him in Mobile, because, again, we talk about these measurements and shit. He was a guy listed at 5'11" and 175. He goes down to Mobile and he measures in at 5'8", 165. And you're like, okay, well, damn. Like, maybe you can play flanker. Maybe you can play X if you really can get off the line. You got footwork. You got speed. You can beat guys off the line. Maybe that's still somewhat in your range as like maybe you're this year's Tank Dell. That did not happen, man. And how he is going to have to win in the NFL, he's going to have to be strictly a slot player. And the lack of physical strength and play strength really showed up in his game. And the other part about it is, even if he wasn't going to have, like, you cannot be a strong dude. If you got foot speed and you got quickness, you can win with speed releases off the line. Like, that's totally fine, man. But he doesn't have enough of, like, there's not a trump card in his bag of tricks where he can, like, say, I can beat you and this is the way I will consistently win as an outside wide receiver or a 50-50 wide receiver that rotates inside and outside. So for Cowing, I entered Mobile with him as my wide receiver 2. I exited Mobile with he was the 4th lowest ranked wide receiver that I had coming out of Mobile.
Wow, massive faller.
That's a kick right in the balls. That was one of my favorites heading into that week too.
Dude,
and then I saw the measurements come in, and I tried not to be the size snob anymore, especially after last year. You know, Achane, Tank Dell, Keaton Mitchell had moments, right? And all of a sudden, Zay Flowers producing like a number 1 wide receiver, and you're like, okay, size is kind of out the window. If you can fucking play, you can play. I don't really care too much about
you can ball,
measurables.
man.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a little disappointing, but then to hear that, you know, he couldn't do anything really impressive.
No,
at that
he got
size.
he got bodied, man. He got bodied in routes. He got bodied on the line. And to Daniel's point here in the chat, dude, nobody wanted to line up against Tank Dell last year. Nobody. I mean like nobody. Like corners, this shit was so funny. Corners tried to press Tank Dell, didn't work. Corners tried to play off Tank Dell, didn't work. Corners tried to mix and match the two, didn't work. Like Tank Dell was just like, I'm I'm whooping your ass no matter what you do. Like that was just straight up. And that's where I come back to. There was nobody in Mobile that put on that type of performance this year where they just said, look, this is my show. You're lucky to have watched it.
Yeah. Nobody basically turned heads like that. I mean, you've seen some dominating performances too, and those guys typically have, given you some legit turnover. Like when you go to the NFL level, if you stand out that much in the Senior Bowl, typically you're not going to be like a complete flop. So,
Yeah.
All right, Mike. Any other questions, man, on the Senior Bowl itself?
I'm a tight end guy. Was there any tight end out there that was at least a little bit impressive that we should pay attention to? And I'm talking like, for rookie draft purposes, 3rd, 4th, 5th round, like those kind of dudes where you're like, okay, this guy, he had some flashes or whatever. You see a little talent there.
So there's 3 guys I'll bring up here. Two in a good way, and one I will not draft in rookie drafts. Theo Johnson, I didn't have high expectations for him coming into Mobile. I couldn't find any all-22 on him. And just from his analytical profile, I was like, okay, maybe there's something there, maybe not. And so I was flying blind on him going into Mobile. Like I didn't know what to expect out of that dude. Because I'm not writing up evals based off a highlight film on freaking YouTube. I'm not doing that shit. So if I can't find all 22, I'm not writing you up. Just straight up. That's what it is. And so for Theo Johnson, he crushed the week, man. He absolutely crushed the week. He performed. He was solid in all the blocking drills and stuff. He won most of his one-on-one reps. Like he rarely lost any one-on-one reps. Now, is he a guy that is going to project with the highest ceiling in the world in NFL and for fantasy purposes, just from a physical standpoint? No. Can he develop into being a guy where could he develop and be like a solid tertiary option, like a third option in an NFL passing offense and get red zone work and be a guy that maybe sneaks in as a top 15 guy in fantasy from the tight end position? I could see that in his range of outcomes, but I don't project the high ceiling. But he had a fabulous week, man. I butchered his freaking name the entire week, so apologies, Ben. But Ben Sennett, like I've heard it said both freaking ways. So again, apologies if I'm screwing up your name. But I really liked what I saw out of him. Good movement skills. He was solid through his routes, one-on-ones. He had a tough day too, though, with drops. So that kind of dinged him. But I still think that there's some fantasy upside and goodness. And I'm sorry to anybody that, like, if you hear all the stuff like, well, maybe he's going to be an H-back in the NFL. We don't know. Like, throw all that shit out the window. Like, people are throwing that to his name and putting the H-back as far as that moniker on him because he was used as the lead blocker. He was used as a fullback. He was used in the backfield to block. To me, the way that I look at that kid can block his ass off. And that was the same damn shit you saw Penn State do with Pat Freiermuth when he came out. He was used in the backfield. He was used as a lead blocker because he could freaking plow the road. And so that's what Kansas State did. They put him in there and said, look, go manhandle somebody and open up space for the running back. Yes, sir, coach. Gotcha. And he does it. So as a guy that I think is going to project fully as a tight end, I have some interest there. And one guy that I'm totally out on, you can count me out on Jaheim Bell. Like, no. And,
Okay.
And this really, like, I was high on Jaheim Bell just based off of his profile going into Mobile. His film was okay. It wasn't amazing. But you look at Jaheim Bell, and the reason I was so enamored with his profile, man, like we're talking about a guy that over the last 3 seasons in college has literally finished amongst all tight ends with 20 or more targets. He has finished top 12 in every damn year and yak per reception and missed tackles forced. So I'm like, shit, you're a force with the ball in your hands, man. Like you can go make some shit happen. He didn't look nearly explosive enough. He didn't look sudden in his routes. And yes, did he win some of the one-on-ones? Did he have some moments? Sure. But we're also talking about a guy that we're going back to the measurables here. If you don't have, he's 6'1", man. If you don't have a special sauce like elite speed testing out the damn gym and that kind of shit shows up on the field at 6'1", you're not going to play tight end in the NFL. You might play a big slot wide receiver, but the problem with him at that size and probably how he's going to test, he's a tweener guy. That's really not going to have much of a definitive role in the NFL, so I'm out.
Yeah.
You're really looking at Josiah DeGuara type, and
Yep.
that's not the most sexy thing for fantasy, right?
I mean,
Like a
6'1" is
poor man's Jonnu Smith, a small, like Jonnu's slower little brother.
I mean, shittier Delaney Walker.
Well, I was gonna say to be that's exactly right. If you're gonna be 6'1" and make it, you got to be as good or athletic as Delaney was, and that's just super rare. You basically never see that.
It's rare,
right? Extremely rare.
You don't go looking for zebras, man. So for me, I will happily, if he hits and I'm wrong, kudos, Jaheim. Like all power to you, man. But as far as his profile and what I saw and all those types of things and how I project him to test at that size, I don't see the path.
Yeah, he's an outlier. You don't want to be betting on, I don't think, honestly. All right, we got Corey in the building.
This guy.
Bang.
Boom.
Let's go, man. What it do, baby? Can't wait to see Mike on the course in August for the inaugural shit scramble. Huh?
Not a chance. Zero chance that happens.
Really?
I don't golf, man. That ain't me.
Man, the guy can't
Not even Top Golf?
can't even support his own brand. You know, it's all right. It's okay.
Not
I
even
understand.
Top Golf? Like go there, grab a drink, and knock the shit out of the ball? Come on.
All you really got to do in a scramble is just ride around, get drunk. That's like right up your alley. You know?
It's Canton, Ohio. It's gonna be on like a Tuesday. I'm sure I'll find something to do.
Exactly.
You could be the designated putter. Like, can you whoop up some putt golf? Like, you could just be the.
I could putt.
There you go.
Okay, so why not?
There you have it.
You're not the guy off the tee, but when they get close to the tee, all right, let's bring in the ringer, baby. Come on,
Bring
putt that
in our
bitch.
money guy.
Let's go.
Line it up. He's got it. First
John
one up,
Daly
man.
the fuck out of that putter.
I mean, come on, yeah. See,
Mike's gonna end up having a blast. Don't worry about his negativity right now. Okay.
I already foresee a long day of putting and extremely bright sunglass line from the sunburn from all the golf Mike's gonna play.
1000%.
Oh yeah, he's gonna have an awesome suntan. It's gonna be great.
And I'll be hammered the whole time.
Oh, that's no questions about that.
Might not feel the burn, but still gonna be there, baby.
Oh, it's gonna be there.
Oh, by the way, Adam, I didn't get to tell the audience too, but I'm extremely excited. I got some like Siberian Zins coming in this week.
Oh, really?
Some 50 milligrams. Let's go. We're going to the fucking moon, boys.
Siberian?
Yeah, dude. They had to go through customs. I got like 50 notifications from UPS about like the getting inspected by the government before they release them. I'm like, oh, this is.
They had to run it past the dogs on the way in, like.
This is exactly what we came for, buddy, right there. Mike never, when he puts some shades on, man, he rarely disappoints. Very rarely.
It's some Indiana Jones shit. Like, it comes in like a wooden case. It gets like crowbarred out and stuff. Like, it's in a giant warehouse.
Like, these are just sixes. Now imagine taking that to 50.
50.
I'm going to be an astronaut.
I was fixing to say, you're going to orbit the moon, man.
I'm kind of looking forward to it, honestly.
I'll keep it a can here so we can do live next week on AMA, right?
Boom. All right.
Try it.
All I
Say
heard was
less.
Adam is carrying the entire show.
I mean, that's Zen or
Adam,
not,
you
right?
ready for a solo show? I know you got your solo pod now. You ready for a solo show?
That's why we've been practicing, man. Sometimes you need to be ready to go, even when you're not called on.
You got to be prepared for all instances, man.
Sometimes it's been a long time, D-Bro. This goes back to the early days. There was one time we were doing a Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes. I hate to put this out there, but it's worth going back and looking.
Definitely.
Man, this dude was like torn up to the point where we're recording. I'm like, man, I almost feel like I should stop him because this is just crazy. But at this point, like, we're already halfway through, and it's gonna be fucking awesome for the audience. So fuck it, let's lean into this thing. Yeah. It's been a long time since we've been to that point, though. That was fantastic.
Derek, that night I pissed on my own bathroom floor. We recorded like 3 shows, all right? And I had to pee in between one of them, so I went to the bathroom. I forgot to turn on the light, and I was just like, fuck it, we're going to roll with it. And I'm sitting there and I'm peeing, and all of a sudden my foot is wet, and I can't figure out why. And then I look down and I go, "Uh-oh, I missed everything." So
All right.
just left it.
Dude.
Went back to doing content. Like you can't quit.
The PSA there for everybody out there at home is, if you ain't got no aim on it, just piss into the tub, man. Like, it's gonna catch everything. Like,
There you go.
like for real. Like, you can't miss. Like, you hit the wall, it goes down to the tub. You hit the tub, it's in the tub. Like,
that was a good idea.
Mike,
I
like, come
just
on,
used
man.
The stand-up shower. I just used the stand-up shower.
The only problem is that's like in that moment, assuming that we got brain function and things to like, okay, maybe I shouldn't pee here. He was well past that point.
That thought never crossed his mind, man.
Hell
He's just
no.
like, I gotta go, and wherever I'm at, it's gonna.
I'm honestly kind of amazed he remembers pissing on his foot like that.
Oh, you don't forget a thing like that when you get your ass chewed by your wife the next morning. Okay.
That's fair. That's fair.
I ruined her night with the pee on the floor in the morning, but before that, like, I went to bed, I laid down for like 3 minutes, and then I got up and I was like, "Oh, we're gonna vomit." So I ran to our bedroom bathroom and woke her up doing it. Yeah, it was bad.
Go ahead.
So here's my question, because inquiring minds need to know. Did you wake up hungover in the morning to your wife finding the piss on the floor? Or was this like something that happened in the middle of the night while you were still drunk? Or was that what you woke up? Like, she went into the bathroom innocently, like, man, I got to get ready for work. But what the hell is this? Like, how did that whole transpire? I need the quick, like, the
quick story is I worked
wouldn't
all
mind
day.
this too. Yeah.
And it was in the middle of summer. It might have been like a July day, and I was
it was dead
sweating
summer.
to death.
Yeah.
And I didn't drink shit for water. I barely had anything to eat. I came home, I ate dinner, and then we had a big night of content, so we just drove right into it. So I pour up with the vodka like I normally do, and after the first one, I was like, damn, this thing is hitting like a truck, I was dehydrated as fuck, right? Just putting alcohol straight in there. I had the second one for the second show, and I was like, oh, man, I think I'm drunk. And I was like, well, no way. Like, I never get drunk off of 2. Like, I need at least 3. So I did the third one, and that was the worst mistake ever. So I pissed on the floor. I went to bed about midnight. I couldn't sleep right away because everything was spinning. I vomited all over our bathroom, right? I cleaned that up, but she had already woken up at that point. She's pissed off. She's like, it's a fucking Tuesday night. You got to work tomorrow. What the fuck is wrong with you? And I'm like, okay. So when I woke up in the morning, she gets up a little bit before I do. I had to be up at 5 a.m. She's up at 4:30 to work out in the basement next to the piss bathroom. At 4:45, her ass is upstairs like, get your fucking ass out of bed. You got piss all over the floor down here, and I'm still cleaning up vomit from last night. There ain't no way you're not going to work today. And I was like, oh, this day's starting great. Adam, I done fucked up.
Yeah. Imagine being that dehydrated, and then you got bodily fluids getting you in trouble in multiple places. Like, that's a bad recipe,
terrible.
buddy.
And what was this? You said last year this happened?
This was 2022. 2022
Okay, so
summer.
We're all old enough to at this point in our lives that we can all say that, like, hangovers at this stage of life hit a little bit different when you hit it when you're 18 or 20. Like,
I feel like
it's
that.
a little bit different. You get that, like,
Quite a bit.
three-day hangover where you just hate life for the first 2 days, and the third day you're like, oh man, I remember what food is. It sounds good now.
Yeah, I was kind of razzing Mike like the next time when we started recording and he wasn't drinking. He's like, nah, trust me, nah.
I'm still recovering.
All right, man. Let's get to a couple questions before we just take. We could end up talking Mike's drunkenness or Zen the entire show. All right, guys. Real quick, let's get to a couple questions at least. 102, 107, 109, Mike. You're not that drunk yet.
Nope.
To send all 3 of those picks for Justin Jefferson in a 14 team, are you?
No chance.
No way.
Nah, 102 already in 14
teamer. No way in hell.
14 team 102. Honestly, like that quarterback's probably going to end up be going not much behind Justin Jefferson in a 14 team startup, frankly. Yep. And then you're adding in 107 and 109. Nah, in 14 team you also need depth. So. No. Grimy 3, stay grimy. Don't let this happen, man. I wouldn't even let Mike do this drunk.
Caleb's the 101. The 102 in a 14 team, it's a tough case to make, but you can make a case for Marv. Marvin Jefferson are pretty close already. Best case scenario, like you could, if you really wanted Jefferson in a lineup league, you could send the 102 and 109. But there's no way I'm adding another first in this class. Period.
Nah, no chance.
I'd counter with the 107 and 109 and put some kind of like little sweetener, like build this thing out for like as like a 3-for-2 trade, like Jefferson and like some kind of kicker, whether that's like a speculative ad player, if it's tight end premium, like you taking a shot on a tight end, or like a third or something like that. Like I'd build this out to kind of like kick that value down. Like I would counter like with something built around the 107 and 109 with something on top.
Absolutely. By the way, Steve says this is the most relatable non-fantasy content. Appreciate that.
We've all been there, Steve. We've all
Fizzle
been there,
says
baby.
Expo Mike has arrived at home. That's very true. And Trip Crown
Fizzle,
says,
my
going
boy.
back to Adam's solo pods, lesson learned: drink water. And you know what? Absolutely, 100%. Mike learned
Mike's
that lesson,
just giving
buddy.
you content for next week's episode. That's all he's doing right now.
Exactly, man.
Why do you think I use so much ice now?
There's water. There's water.
He does too. I tell you what, I have seen Mike get a good level, but I have never even seen him get close to that point since. And
I haven't seen myself get close to that.
not even at the expo, honestly. Like
Nope,
you
not
got
even
pretty
at the
drunk at the
expo.
expo, but not to that level, man. You were slurring to a point like I'm like, oh, this dude is dunzo.
It was the
brother.
greatest trade show in history too. I'm pretty sure that was the last episode we recorded.
The trade
that
show,
night.
bro. The crazy part was the trade show. I remember at the end, you were kind of like to the point where we just had that little quick player short to do the comparison. The what was it called?
Name brand off.
Name brand off
back
brand.
in
Yeah,
the
with
day.
Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes, man. So I'm like, this is a 10-minute video. He can knock through it. Let's just say that wasn't 10 minutes. Anywhere close to 10 minutes, frankly. It was longer than that by a good bit, and it was fun. Go back and check it out, man. If you want to go do a deep dive, if you want non-relatable fantasy content, that gives you both relatability and fantasy content from 22. We called Jalen Hurts being close to Patrick Mahomes. Mike was just hammered. So
I didn't have the shades, and I can guarantee at some point during that video, I was probably doing the one-eye drunk thing. You know, when you can't really focus with two eyes.
Where shit
so you
gets dizzy
close
and you're
one.
like-
I think Mike was talking a little closed eyes at the time too, like really leaning into it. So
Real talk, Adam. Did you send him any Dynasty trades, like knowing what kind of shape he was in? Like,
You know
maybe
what?
get those quick accepts from McNutted?
I'll
Like,
tell you
while
one
you're on
thing,
the
man.
show?
That's where sometimes Mike and I are different, man, because I know when I'm that drunk, Mike has Kyle Pittsed me. Mike has given me the full-fledged no, man. I'm out here just like trying to make sure he didn't embarrass himself too bad on the show, which I didn't. I wasn't able to change. I should have absolutely sent him something crazy, man. It's all right, though.
late.
Again, lesson learned, right? The problem is I haven't
We've all
seen
had
Mike any.
drunk Dynasty trades we made at 2 a.m. that we wish we could get back, dude. Just it is what it is.
I know I have, and I'll say Mike hasn't gotten to the point of that level of drunkenness. Otherwise, this time he will be getting taken advantage of. But
You already got me on Puka and QJ, all right?
but that's sober shit, man. That's different,
That's sober me being an idiot.
All right, 12 team PPR. Hey boys, won a championship. Nice. Traded away Kyron Diggs, Pop Douglas, and Mechie for Tank Dell and Pacheco. Thoughts? I don't know about this, brother.
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't have done that.
I mean, Pop
me, that
Douglas and
feels like-
Mechie aren't really like a big part of it, but like
No, I look at this as straight up like Kyron and Diggs for Tank Dell and Pacheco is the way I look at that.
yeah. And if I just look at startup ADP, like I feel like this is I feel like you're really really worried about Stephon Diggs making this type of a trade. Would it be? I guess the way I would view it.
I don't.
This also
I don't mind
feels like
Really, Mike?
this also feels like buying high on Pacheco. Like, what's to keep him from getting cucked? Like they bring in another guy in the draft, mid-round guy. Like I know he's been good, but is he still going to be the guy like in the next 2 years for Kansas City? For me, I'm not really sold on that, man. Like he's been good, but nothing special.
I like him, but there's no like guaranteed certainty with him. Well, most running backs, to your point, I agree. I guess here's the thing: is like realistically, what do we view as the difference between Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs? For example, if I just look at startup ADP, Mike, Tank Dell's a 503 and Stephon Diggs is a 606. The difference in Kyron and Pacheco is a 311 to 607. But
Yep.
the big thing, I guess, becomes how much do you really view differently Kyron and Pacheco, and is it worth getting younger by a significant amount at receiver, right?
That's the key point for me. After doing last night's episode on running backs and just how risky they are from top to bottom. No matter what we feel about them right now, the difference between Kyren and Pacheco, like D-Bro, you were just talking about, could Pacheco get... Fuck, Kyren could get replaced. They could draft another guy and bring him in. I know he was amazing for him. But Cam Akers at one point was amazing for that Sean McVay offense, and then you just said,
there's some differences there.
There's some differences there. Yes.
There's some big differences there, man. Like
one of them
Cam
being
Akers
pass blocking.
Cam Akers even at his high point, and this is from somebody who was over the moon on Cam Akers, okay? Cam Akers, even at his high point, was never given that full Todd Gurley role. Kyren got that in spades, dude. And to me, okay, so I would feel differently about Kyren if after the injury he came back and you saw maybe the Rams ran it as a 70-30, a 60-40, 65-35 type of split. Dude, he went right back into the same damn role he left from. Like, he was the dude. He played like 90%, 100% of the... I don't know if he can hold up to that type of workload, but seeing what the Rams did after he came back from injury and how much they leaned on him and how, honestly, like, I'm going to straight up say, like, I was never a Kyren believer up until this season. And the other part about that, like, people can wag their tails about being in on Kyren and all that kind of shit. Let's keep it 100 here. The Kyren Williams you saw this year is not the Kyren Williams you saw in his rookie season. It is not the Kyren Williams that you saw at Notre Dame. You could puff your chest out and say all the things you want to. That dude looked like a different guy this year. And the Rams, the other part I'll bring up here too about Kyren is they fundamentally changed up their entire run game scheme around him. We're talking about a team that used to be wide zone, stretch zone, things like that. They ran more power, they ran more duo, they ran more gap, and a lot of that was all because of Kyren, because that's what he was. He doesn't have that type of explosive lateral agility where he can run stretch in the NFL and get to the edge consistently. But you put him in a gap, you put him in a scheme where he's asked to get downhill and be explosive and break tackles in that way. One, he looked like a different dude, and two, they fundamentally changed their entire offense really to kind of fit what he does well.
Yeah,
I think a lot of it is just holistically for me at the running back position, right? Both of them
I don't disagree with that.
Risk. Both of them carry risk just inherently from being running backs. And it's not like we don't have some concerns about Kyler, especially on the injury front. Now, this is 3 major injuries that we've seen from him that have caused him to miss time. This last one doesn't really count because it was in the playoffs with the fractured forearm or whatever kept him out of that's basically the third and fourth quarter of that playoff game. But he's had some injury concerns. He's on the smaller side. We've seen him get banged up. His rookie year, he had that foot fracture. Then you saw him miss time this season as well. There's just not too much difference for him if I'm going to bet on production. If I'm going to look at dynasty value, not that I don't think Diggs can produce still. Like, I think maybe we hate him a little bit too much. But there's a fuck ton of people in my leagues who are going to be interested in the Tank Dell and not a lot of people who are going to be willing to buy into Stephon Diggs. So the gap between those two is much bigger than the gap between Kyren and Pacheco. And the Pop Douglas and Mechie thing I could care less about. Send those
they were just whatever kind of filler stuff to get somebody to say yes. Like, that's all that was.
Now,
the lone dissension here. I don't mind the trade. Like, I don't hate it at all.
This is a good discussion point, honestly, because Mike, I think here's what I will say about it. Okay, I get where you're at holistically, and I can definitely get behind why you might make this trade, especially if Pop Douglas and Mechie to you just are fluff that you're throwing into the deal. Here's my thing. One, okay, Diggs as an asset is less flexible to trade, but if you're holding, I don't necessarily know that next year Diggs is going to be worse off than Tank Dell, frankly. Now, I definitely get that that he is a much more tradable piece right now, Tank Dell. He's a lot more exciting, and everyone's cold as ice on Diggs. The one thing I don't think people quite understand, and what we were chasing with Cam Akers was what we saw in spurts of basically taking this, Sean McVay running back that he loves and trusts. Now, to Debro's point, like, they did actually change some of the scheme they ran this year, but one thing that we know about McVay is, at least from watching, he doesn't like to show his hand and have a guy like Cam Akers out there, which is going to not be what he feels comfortable pass blocking, and then anytime you're in there, he's running, and you almost know that he's a run guy. Like, Kyren Williams, I don't think people really realize this. if I'm going to bet on a running back, the one thing I want to bet on, Mike, and we know this, is like a Christian McCaffrey type, a Saquon Barkley type that's literally out there all the time. I don't think people really quite understand that Kyren Williams led the entire NFL at the running back position in snap percentage this year. 82%. Nobody, not Christian McCaffrey this year, who was getting out there all the time. No one is in that like range. So if I was to say for the gap in that flexibility, I'm not going to say it's necessarily a move that is always going to win out for you. But if I view, like, I don't know that I've ever seen since Gurley somebody that McVay has leaned on like this. And if he's still around, if I'm valuing it in a 1-year window, Kyren Williams to me could be, like, I don't want to draft him at 311, right? But in this type of a trade, I might be willing to do it because it's Pacheco, who I like, but Kyren has league-winning upside at that type of potential of snap share.
Yeah, okay. I don't disagree with that. And the one thing I'll add on top of this is, I mean, even if you want to go back to warp and things like that, like, Pacheco's not moving the needle that much for you, man. Diggs will. And, like, to me, the difference between Kyren and Diggs and Tank Dell and Pacheco, to me, you're getting younger, but we could make the case about Stephon Diggs is not an easily moved type of dynasty asset. Dude, we could say the same shit for Isaiah Pacheco. Like, who's out there clamoring to get Pacheco on their damn team? Not me.
Nah, probably not. You're probably holding him too. Yeah, I would agree.
But just this past year, right? While we're on the subject though of warp, if you had to guess, like, what's the difference between per game, warp per game, difference between Diggs and Pacheco this past season? Like, what'd they give you?
Diggs versus Pacheco.
Yeah,
Diggs was bad this year, so I bet you it wasn't a little bit higher. Yeah.
Was it work? Well, the other part about it, Diggs, his season was a tale of two halves.
Yes.
So
Second half was bad.
First half Diggs, if you look at the totality of his season, there might not be that much difference. First half Diggs would bury him. Second half Diggs, Pacheco's winning it.
I would agree with that point too. Yep.
Yeah, you're like 100th off between the two.
Yeah, because Diggs was like a freaking wide receiver 4 or 5 for the last like 6 weeks of the season. So it absolutely skews his entire season, to be honest.
Right. So if I'm just looking at production, like, they're both fairly similar, at least this last year, holistically throughout the season, right? One of them just happened to disappear when you really needed them. Wanted to count on them in the fantasy playoffs. So that's why the stink is on him.
Diggs was on a milk carton, man, no doubt.
Right.
I mean, the way I would look at it, though, if I'm looking at it from a warp perspective, now, typically I'm not looking to go capture, like, guys that I want to hold all the way through the season. But if I was to try to capture warp, the combination of Kyren, like, Kyren alone is the one that actually was doing something in warp last year. Now, you can't necessarily project that every year to be that way, but, like, Kyren, as far as warp goes, man, he's Mike Evans and, you know, the elite guys in warp last year. And if he's going to keep that whirl, he'd be one of the few running backs. Mike, I don't want to draft him in a startup in the 3rd round, but for this type of a price, I think I'd be willing to probably take this trade on. Now, I'm not going to say anybody got crushed in this deal. I think it's a very good talking point we just kind of went through. Like, I could see it for both sides. You know, I really could. I just personally think I'd be willing to take Kyren.
I'm not even like the biggest Tank Dell guy, but, you know, if I'm faced with the choice in the 3rd round of taking Kyren or Tank Dell, I'm taking Tank Dell every day of the week. Not even thinking about it.
So the other way that I view this deal is that I think in a lot of instances, could we also say if you were to strip this deal down to its basic parts, a lot of times, like, just to get Kyren, considering where he's valued right now, you could straight up say you'd have to trade Tank Dell and Pacheco just to get Kyren. And
in
so
a startup
Diggs
value, yes.
And Diggs is the gravy on top of it. So, like, if you get the Diggs side, you could say, I'm going to hold Kyren for right now, or I'm going to hold Kyren like he's a foundational piece if you view him that way, based off of warp, based off of his age, based off of the role and all that kind of stuff. And I'll just hold Diggs, let the cards fall as they may, and whenever he's a wide receiver 1 still in Buffalo or wherever he lands, I'll sell him in season, and whether that's a 25 first or a 25 second, that's where I'll get on top of this trade.
Yeah, I definitely think from a startup value standpoint that the Kyren side wins out. Now, basically, I think it's a matter of Debo kind of just laid it out. You're going to end up holding those two guys, I think, for the most part, where the other side probably offers a little more flexibility with just Tank Dell, not necessarily the running back. All right. That's a good conversation, man. We went in depth on that one. I love that type shit, man.
Sure
love
did.
it. All right, let's go to this one. Office Depot's back. I'm stacked. Oh wait, never mind. I'm pulling up the same damn. Let's keep talking about it.
Roll the clip.
D-Bro, is there a range of picks you are targeting now to try to get ahead before DC and landing spots? You mentioned like seconds for Lloyd and anybody else.
I think I'm trying, because you're going to have to give up your firstborn to probably get like somewhere in the mid or high end first. Like ain't nobody giving those up, and you're going to have to overpay to get them at this point. So if you're going for that, have at it. But for me, at least, and I'm still early on evaluating this class. So a lot of the secondary receivers, hell, even the top guys, like I've gotten through the Senior Bowl guys of this class so far, but looking how this class is kind of shaking out in my mind's eye right now, I could see myself trading into or acquiring a lot of seconds in this class or early thirds, because you can get those as throw-ins for trades. And there's a lot of guys in that second round conversation. I think like Marshawn Lloyd is damn interesting. He's going to go somewhere in the second round, but there's a bunch of other running backs that I think could surprise from this class. There's other wide receivers that if they get the draft capital could surprise. Like, again, just because I'm Senior Bowl centric right now, like talking about Marshawn Lloyd and Javon Baker, they're guys that are going to go in the third or fourth round of the NFL draft. I think Baker and Lloyd both go in the third round of the NFL draft, and they're going to be somewhere in the mid to late second. Maybe Baker falls in the top end of the third. Seeing where he's going to go. So for me, good luck trying to get any firsts in this class, like trading for those or what have you. That shit's basically probably impossible in a lot of sharp leagues right now, or you're going to have to overpay. So for me, I'm going to go out and try to get a lot of seconds and maybe some early thirds and stuff like that and cobble together. Like if I can get 2 thirds in the rookie draft, I'm going to use those to trade into the second round, because I think there's probably going to be a nice little honey hole of guys in the late to mid second, whether we want to talk about the Bakers, the Lloyds, the Johnny Wilsons of the world, that I think offer very interesting profiles with some upside right now.
I love it, man. All right, Mike, 12 team Superflex start 11. Okay, we got Gabe, Jaden Daniels, Brian Thomas, and Mark Andrews for Puka in an early 25 first. I have Hurts, Burrow, Drake May, Levis, tight end I have McBride and Mayer. I still need a wide receiver 1. So you're giving up Daniels, which right now is like 103, let's call it ish. Brian Thomas like 108 ish, and Mark Andrews for Puka in early 25.
I love Puka, but damn it, that's buying high. In one quarterback, yeah, I think it's probably fair. And in Superflex,
couldn't do that. I
It feels pretty rich, man. Like I'm with.
I know what Daniels.
You should have been able to get this deal done for Brian Thomas and Mark Andrews just straight up for Puka. I think that would have been a fair trade.
Yeah, I mean the other thing too is like I've seen in these type of trades, Mystic, where maybe you know it where it's not this way. I've seen where someone says they're getting an early 25 here, but you don't really necessarily factor in what can happen in a year, and if that's not 101, 102, we're not even having a relative discussion. Like it's not even close at that point. So sometimes I think in this scenario, unless you guarantee me that this is like 101, like this team is basically about to be orphaned. I probably don't want to do this, man. Like, and I love Puka. I'm as high as you probably can get on Puka. I'm at like wide receiver 6, I think, in Dynasty. But I can't do this.
Follow me hypothetically too. Jaden Daniels gets top 6 NFL draft capital.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels goes before Puka in every single startup that you're in.
He's at minimum even, and he's probably going ahead of him, to your point. Yes, I would agree.
Yes, Jaden Daniels, when you sift out, and that's a good point on as far as like quarterback rankings, like when you pull up like, just where you're ranking guys in Dynasty, like we talked about how shaky it is for like just the running back position. Shit, man, go look at quarterback right now. Like when you get past like the entire tier of like Burrow, Stroud, like you want to put Purdy there or not, that's a conversation in its own right. But when you get to these tier 3 quarterbacks, like who you feel good about, like after, like if you're in on Jordan Love, like after the top 8, 9 quarterbacks, like who are you really in on? Like Dak Prescott, what happens to Justin Fields, like what's going to happen to Justin Herbert with Harbaugh there? Like a bunch of these guys, it's like,
yeah, man.
Jane Daniels is going to be a first-round startup pick, like straight up.
That's what I was saying.
Round.
We just had
he will be.
Our first video BDG drop for Dynasty. We were talking about projecting like startups, right? And right now the pick 3 is going at 301, and I said there's no way that continues. and it's probably going to be at minimum a second round. And I honestly think here's the reality. In startup ADP, you'll see right now the 112 is Anthony Richardson. And tell me right now, when Jaden Daniels locks in, to Mike's point in this scenario, Jaden Daniels locks in top 6 draft capital. The only difference between A-Rich and Jaden Daniels, you could say A-Rich is probably like sturdier, bigger athlete, maybe even needs better in like the combine. But there's really not much difference other than one's coming off of shoulder surgery to his actual throwing arm versus the other guy's high-end upside. There's no way he's not close to a first-round pick, if not in the first round, frankly. So,
yep.
And you're seeing you're seeing Puka right now at the 208, and he's probably not going but much higher than that.
Here's the thing, and I mean, and people don't like to hear this, Derek. They don't like to hear it, right? But if you could guarantee me right now, right, Caleb Williams is the first pick, and Drake May maybe went 3, or Jane Daniels goes 4, maybe he goes 2 to the Commanders. If that happens, there's going to be a lot of Superflex rookie drafts where people take Jaden Daniels as the 101 because of one thing. Rushing quarterbacks in fantasy football have that elite floor. You see it every single year. There's a reason that a Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts separated themselves so much from everybody else the rest of this year because they're punching in a touchdown every single week on the ground, right? They already start with 6 fucking fantasy points. You have to be elite efficiency. You got to have an insane Joe Burrow season. You have to be Patrick Mahomes and throwing for 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns to reach that threshold that a Jalen Hurts and a Josh Allen roll out of bed and just walk into. Jaden Daniels has that skill set in him. Like, he has that ability. And when you look at Caleb Williams, if you're going to project the two, Caleb's the better NFL talent. I like him. He's awesome. But he's not running for 800 yards. He's not a threat for 10 touchdowns on the ground. He's like a 400-yard kind of guy. So you really have to project that he's going to throw for 4,500 yards and damn near 40 touchdowns to be in that elite quarterback category right out of the jump. Jaden Daniels might be your 101 consensus by the time it's all said and done. So that's why I say, like, there's no way I would be giving that up right now. Before I even know. You can make a
good conversation to say that Jaden Daniels, based off of his floor and ceiling combination, is that you could slot him in. And I'm not telling you that, look, I'm still evaluating these quarterbacks. But what I'm saying is there is a conversation to be had that legit Dynasty QB ranks go like this. Your tier 1 dudes are Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, and Josh Allen. Your tier 2 begins and ends with Lamar Jackson, Anthony Richardson, and Jaden Daniels, and that's the end of the tier. So he's a mid-first round startup pick, straight up.
Now, what's really interesting about this conversation, I'll just add another layer to it, okay? Go look at Josh Allen when he made the jump from quarterback 11 to quarterback 1, and when Jalen Hurts was, again, a back-end quarterback 1 to a high-end quarterback 1. What happens? Stephon Diggs and A.J. Brown. So Jaden Daniels right now, what I'm trying to explain is probably what we base him and like kind of view him as with the draft capital association, which Jalen Hurts didn't have at the time, right? He had to get a bag to really lock that in. Jaden Daniels is probably going to have that back-end quarterback 1 floor no matter who takes him. But God forbid he goes to Atlanta or somewhere where like, oh shit, like he's got weapons too off the rip. You're talking about upside like right away that we haven't had a chance to see for most people because they don't normally have the weapon coming in. And even if he was in like the Commanders, it's not like Diggs or A.J. Brown per se, but Terry McLaurin has proven that all he really needs is a quarterback. So the weapons might not be that bad for a guy like of this talent too. So he might surprise people in his warp right away. That's my kind of take on it. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to hot take and say Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams, but what we're talking about here too is if you are the pocket passer guy, and this is like, I love freaking CJ Stroud, but let's call it what it is. Like, you have to have that type of like ridiculous, like either one of two things have to happen. If you're not going to run for 600-700 yards and you're not going to get rushing scores on the ground, Mike laid this out perfectly. You've got to either do one of two things. Your offense has to be top 5, top 10 in neutral passing rate, and you have to be locked in to top 10, top 8 in passing attempts, or you have to be efficient as hell.
Yes.
And this year, CJ Stroud was efficient as hell, but like you see these guys, and the one guy that I'll bring up here, and we could throw him into the same. I'm not saying that Caleb Williams is going to have this type of career arc, but I'm old enough to remember when everybody put Trevor Lawrence up there on the damn pedestal and said he's going to be the football Jesus. He's going to be amazing. He's going to be this and this and this. And he did it last year, or he did it in 2022. He comes out in 2023, and we're looking at him to sit here and build upon that. And it was the year from hell, but he wasn't able to produce that well in fantasy, even the weeks he was healthy, because he didn't have the type of high-end like volume numbers or the touchdowns to help him. So if that were to happen to Caleb Williams, you could see his stock tank like really quickly, much in the way that we saw Trevor Lawrence. And I'm not talking about Urban Meyer Trevor Lawrence. I'm talking about Trevor Lawrence in the last iterations we've seen over the last 2 years. Even that guy, there's still a lot of people out there that believe in him, but there's a lot of people like myself that's like, nah, man, if I got him, I'm trading him away if I can get really good value on him. Like, it's tough.
CJ Stroud, to give you context, right? The dude was one of the best rookies we've ever seen as far as a passer. Like, he really did a shit ton for a rookie quarterback. All those situations, and guess what he gave you? Quarterback 11 in warp.
Yeah. So as good as
like realistically, if Caleb like hits or meets that and goes over that even, so we're talking about like NFL record type stuff, he may not have the upside that, one of these guys that just runs for 700, 800, 900 yards can do. All right, real quick, let's get 2 more. We're already almost at an hour and a half. Debro, man,
good, man.
You know what they say? Time flies when you're having fun. This is crazy.
I feel like we just turned the cameras on, man.
I know, man. It's crazy. It really is. Here, let's see what we got here. Oh, Mystic's back. I like this question here. 12-team Superflex start 11. Drake May for Breece Hall. I don't need quarterback and need a running back.
This is tough.
Can I be honest with? Go ahead, Debro. You go, Debro.
If you're set at quarterback, I think you can have the same conversation for Drake May we just had about Caleb Williams. I would take Breece.
Michael?
If you're set at quarterback. And I mean, like, you got 2 horses, or you've got one, like, anchor, like, guy. You've got 3 good quarterbacks, like, where you're basically rotating QB2. In that scenario, I would take Breece. But outside of that, yeah, I would go May.
There's a lot of things about Breece I like, right? He's one of the safe running backs, right? There's not too many of them, right? But there's only 3 of them. It's Bijan, Breece, and Jahmyr Gibbs. And outside of that, Christian McCaffrey produces elite numbers, but he's on the older side, right? Like, he is an injury away from people going, well, we're done with him now. That was fun. Everybody else, doesn't matter if it's Achane, it's one of these other guys, Kyron, even these guys, like, they are one bad thing happening, replacement away from them just being toast. Breece is one of the few guys where you look at and you go, yeah, I can reasonably project 2 years, of production and value, and people still going to be interested in Breece. He's really awesome. Then you look at what he did coming off the ACL. Impressive as fuck on that offense. How bad that offensive line was. Quarterback play was shit. Here's the one thing about Breece that just I have a little caution, like, with people who are just automatically throwing him as RB1 for next year, right? Like, look what he did off the ACL. A lot of when you're on a bad offense like that and you're so devoid of weapons outside of Garrett Wilson, he got a shit ton of passing work. A lot of checkdowns from shitty-ass quarterbacks who couldn't push the ball downfield. A lot of that stuff happened. You hope the offense takes a step forward with Aaron Rodgers in the efficiency metrics, right? We get some of this Josh Jacobs or Joe Mixon in the past type efficiency numbers where the offense is in scoring position. But if it doesn't happen and Aaron ain't sitting here checking down to the running back all the time, that's a lot of your production just kind of gone out the window. And then you also have to rely then, okay, well, he's a dynamite runner. Do they fix the offensive line? It is the Jets. It is still a Nathaniel Hackett-led offense. We've seen now for back-to-back years look like dog shit. He's had excuses this past year, Aaron Rodgers with the Achilles and a bad offensive line, and Zach Wilson's his quarterback. But I also watched him basically ruin fucking Russ. And Russ came back this year with Sean Payton and was actually pretty goddamn good for fantasy. Like, he was very efficient, did things he needed to. So some of this is like, fuck, man. Do I really want to trust Nathaniel Hackett to, like, lead an offense that's, like, fucking competent at some point? Do I want to trust that Breece is still going to get either similar receiving numbers and the efficiency on the ground goes up and the touchdowns go up, or am I setting myself up for like this rose-colored glasses scenario where he's going to flat out disappoint on where we're going to take him? So when you talk about trading a quarterback for a running back in a super flex 1-for-1, it's a tough sell for me to actually do it. I would think me personally, I love Brees, but I think I would rather just wait, see what happens with Drake May, especially with draft capital. People get a little bit more antsy. And I may not get Brees, but I may get a running back that's going to be similar, and it's going to cost a fuck ton less.
I think go ahead, D-Bro. Go ahead.
So what I'll say is the counterpoint to Brees and a lot of the checkdowns and stuff, his efficiency numbers on a per-touch basis this year were just fucking bonkers, dude. Like, he was top 5 in, like, everything you care about. Like, missed tackles forced per attempt, like, all this. And this is coming off an ACL. I agree with the point that the target numbers probably come down. What I'll counter with that is we have a sample size of seeing what Hackett does with his running backs. Like, I mean, from literally 2019, 2022, like all these different guys, and I had to go back and look and see how many years Hackett, again, this is off the top of my head, how many years Hackett led that offense as far as the offensive coordinator. But Aaron Jones, 4 years straight, at least 63 targets. And that might not sound like a lot, but that's a shit ton of targets, man. Like, that's going to put him top 5, top 8 in targets amongst running backs. Now, is it close to where Brees had last year? No. But the other part about it is, if those target numbers go down, we've already seen Brees Hall coming off an ACL still have otherworldly type of efficiency on a per-touch basis. So even if the target numbers kind of come down a smidge, like he gets 70 targets next year or in the mid-60s, the touchdowns are definitively going up. The offensive line, it was basement bottom level. Maybe, like, even if you say the chances of it being as bad as it was last year are probably, I would say, even if you want to say the personnel is not great, they probably take a tackle in the draft this year. Even if they don't, even some of these terrible-ass teams saying, okay, he's got a bottom 5 offensive line, those usually regress a little bit to the mean. So we talk about if he gets league average blocking, and I know that that's kind of a stretch right now, but if it does happen, even with Aaron Rodgers coming back, we're going to see more touchdowns, and his per-touch efficiency really makes me think that, like, you're talking about who could take the mantle from CMC. It could be Brees Hall easily, and you don't have to squint hard to see it.
Yeah, I think you kind of laid out some of the points, D-Bro, for me. I'd say when the question as a whole, Mystic, though, right? To me, it comes down to something that really wasn't discussed here is, like, I don't need a quarterback. I need a running back. The timing of this doesn't have to be today, okay? And another thing is, before I would make this trade, I would really probably consider like what I could get cross-positionally to a receiver first and see what that looks like if I wanted to do that. Kind of really dissect, like, is that worth going that route and a lot safer? Now, to the Brees Hall, if you were locked in, I want to get a running back, like this is just what you're going to do. You want to go get a hero RB. Man, I talked a lot about Kyron Williams, but what we saw, first of all, Brees Hall ramped up all year, and you can see it's like reflective in his snap share. At the end of the year, he was so damn good as not just as a receiver, but they trusted him to the point where his knee was. He's playing on 90% of snaps. So I think the health was there. I think that moving into this year, you're probably going to see he be one of the only guys that's out there in that heavy workload. And you just look at the guy's efficiency in an offense which wasn't great. I mean, that's being nice. The ceiling is, you know, as Jordan would say, the ceiling is the roof with this guy. You know, I mean, if you're going to go for a hero running back, I have no problem with you doing it for Brees. I think that right now we have to be realistic about quarterback tradability for Drake May. Probably with the way that quarterback played last year, doesn't offer you as much as we once are used to seeing. You know, for in a Superflex league, just trading away Drake May without getting a quarterback back, you're used to getting some crazy haul. I would probably try to find a receiver first, but if you're locked in and doing this, I don't hate it. Just know that you're really going, like you're going for it right now here in February, and you have a lot of risk on your side.
One other counterpoint to this, if you can get this deal done right now, let's play out, because we're assuming, okay, the assumption right now is the NFL draft goes, and with the assumption with this trade, okay, is that the NFL draft goes like this. Caleb Williams goes to Chicago. Drake May goes to Washington. Jaden Daniels goes maybe to Atlanta or maybe the Patriots. If Jaden Daniels hops him and goes to Washington and Drake May goes to freaking New England, that narrative is going to sit here and say, you will not be able to get this trade later. Even as high as people are on Drake May, just like, let's reason this out, guys, like straight up. Like, if Drake May goes to the New England Patriots, what is his stock going to look like versus now where the assumption is he goes to Washington?
His stock would come down, no doubt. Now, I would be in the camp of just I'm holding, and I'm going to just see that through.
No, that's fine. But
you're correct. His stock will come down.
If
Maybe,
he goes to
probably
New England,
not.
could you get this deal done for Breece Hall? I'm saying you could not do this straight up at that point.
You might not
on New
be.
England.
It could be off the table.
We've seen they have no weapons. Who's he going to throw the ball to?
People are very afraid of
this,
that landing
This
spot.
is my only pushback too. When like, if you're telling me right now, right, like it happened today, right, with where we're at, like the NFL draft was today. Yes, people as a whole, they go, to your point, D-Bro, he's got no fucking weapon. But there's one thing that's going to happen between now and the NFL draft where you're going to understand, like, if somebody goes to New England, maybe you feel a little bit better about them. And it's the fact they got the third most fucking cap space in the entire league. And free agency is going to happen. And it is a very good free agent wide receiver class. Now, we don't know if all these guys are going to make it into free agency, right?
Right.
What happens with Mike Evans, Michael Pittman Jr.? There are a lot of guys out there where you go, fuck. Like, you know, if he lands here, all of a sudden you got, you know, little Pop Douglas. He's something. Like, he's a slot weapon or whatever you want to use for him. But they go out and they get a fucking T. Higgins with Drake May. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, New England, what's up? Like, I don't mind this so much. Like, or they go out and they get a Michael Pittman Jr. Or maybe they get a Michael Pittman Jr. and a Gabe Davis. I don't even fucking like Gabe Davis, but that's a dude that you could just chuck the ball down the fucking field to. So his weapons outlook could drastically change. And plus they're going to have a very early second-round pick, too, if they wanted to pair him with a wide receiver. So I know right now it's like, oh, fuck, sky's falling. But I'm telling you, if it happens and they actually put weapons around whoever they take at quarterback at 3, if that's the play, it could look much better, you know, by the time the actual draft comes around. But I'm with you, though, if they don't fucking do anything, they don't go out and sign anybody, they don't go out and draft a second or a third-round weapon, you know, to add to it that you can get excited about, Jesus, man, this is like Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. Like, who the fuck are you throwing the football
Damn
to?
it. You're get out of my head, man, because that's exactly the counterpoint I was going to give you, and that's the rose-colored scenario you were laying out there, Mike. You're still having to, like, talk yourself into, and it's the ifs, and it's the could-be's, and it's what if this guy signs. The counterpoint to that is, and people are going to remember that, is that we just saw what the hell happened with Bryce Young. People are going to draw that connection. If he were to end up in New England, and even if they draft, like, say they go out and they sign somebody that's not great, and say they draft a wide receiver in the second round, people are also going to make the connection. The narrative writes itself. People are going to say, well, shit, Drake May just got Bryce Young'd. Like that, you know, and again, that's going to hurt his stock as far as trading and stuff too.
Yeah. Now, I will say, because I agree with the points, and now I think there's a spectrum where sometimes you go to a situation where the weapons suck and there's nothing Bryce Young probably was able to do. Realistically, it would have been very hard for him to overcome that situation. The crazy part, though, with narratives and like right now, it's going to be hilarious to really look back and think about this today. But when you have hindsight 2020, and people won't go live in the old reality. You know what the old reality was? I was on the draft stream for fucking 3 days, 20 plus hours, and you know what the narrative was? CJ Stroud ain't got no weapons. He can't do nothing. And I'm telling you guys, I've seen this play out with him. I've seen this play out with Herbert, where it's like, all right, you guys want to fade the situation? I will take that fucking discount because I'm getting him in the mid-first all of a sudden. Fine, I'll do it. And if you end up with Bryce Young at the 105 or 106, sucks, but it's not as bad as when you take Bryce Young at the 101 or the 102, right, at the 103 spot. That really, really hurts. So I'd almost, to your point, like if you just had the player as a stock, it would come down significantly. But for me, he'd be automatically become a hold, and I'm just willing to bet on what I believe is the Duke can ball, and he'll be able to like elevate the level of play for everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not a bad bet to make, and I totally understand that point. I guess my whole thing is that you will not be able to – you could get this trade done now. If his landing spot is not Washington and all of these other things don't coalesce for him, you won't be able to get this trade done later.
That is true. To that point, I agree, though. If you're dead set on like making this trade into a running back, Breece is as good as you're going to get, and probably projecting-wise, like
You
I'm
could resell
good
him.
with it.
Like you could trade. Say you got out of the market and you're like, oh, well, maybe I need to change things up with like my quarterback situation. Brees is a pretty liquid asset right now. Like you could basically like just change it out and go get another quarterback probably from Brees. Like say you're like, screw it. Like I didn't like Drake May or I'm worried about him or Jaden Daniels have a good spot. Jaden Daniels lands in a really good spot. Say he goes to Atlanta or Washington. You might be able to flip Brees Hall straight up for Jaden Daniels and say, screw it. I don't have to worry about the shitty landing spot now. I'll just go get Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, Brees is one of the only 3 running backs that like is more on that liquid side to trade.
On the other side of the coin, though, let's talk that out real quick, though. Say it's a scenario Atlanta trades up to 2, and they trade up to 2 to take Drake May. Like that's the dude that they move up to. Now, what's Drake May's value compared to
Now we're
Brees?
off to the races, baby.
Now we got Mike's 50s in. Now we're in the fucking moonland, buddy.
Yeah,
you know?
We're on that Siberian shit now.
Yeah,
ain't we?
man.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
All right, last one. I'm not actually. I shouldn't even cap this because it's been going well, but I'm trying to make it reasonable, man. We're at holy shit. We're at an hour and 40, dude. All right, last question, and it's gonna end up being a 50-minute conversation like we've been doing. But what's up, y'all? Would you deal Drake London and Pickens for Andrews and the 203? My other wide receivers are Lamb, Chase Hill. I have Pitts at tight end and nobody else. Nah. So Chemo, there's a couple basic like things that to just answer the head shakes you're seeing up here, and I'm on board with them. I don't in a start 9 league. Okay, yes, I've been the person that's used to chase tight end. If you go look at Warp, typically, like you would need to tell me that this tight end premium is like 2 or more, like double points per catch, for me to even consider. And even then, I'm probably still saying no. I think tight end is one of those positions, especially if I already have Pitts in the wings. I'm hoping for a better situation for him this year. I'm just going to let my tight end be what it is. And because I think that right now, I know what happens. A lot of people are very afraid with this Atlanta situation. You got Pitts, you got London. You don't want to have both. I'm not dealing away London and the odds of maybe I'm getting the wrong Atlanta asset. So, nah, don't do this, man. I'd be fine with moving Pickens for the 203, frankly, but not London to Andrews. I'm really, really in on London and his situation change this year.
London's a baller, has always been a baller. He is, you want to talk about true alphas? I'll throw this out here right now, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. If you give Drake London a league average passing rate, if you give Drake London a league average quarterback, and no, Desmond Ridder is not that, no, Taylor Heineke is not that, no, Marcus Mariota is not that. You give him league average play, league average target volume. Drake London's catching 95 balls, 2024. Fucking calling it. He's catching 95 to 100 balls. He's going to fucking do it.
Look at that.
Straight
all
up.
In unison. We're all the same energy because I know Mike's been high on London.
London is a fucking baller. There is no... somebody could turn on the All-22, and I'm straight up like, I've watched London's All-22 from last year. I watched it in his rookie season. He is a stone-cold alpha. I'm not... I've got London everywhere. I'm beating people back with a damn stick. I'm like, I ain't trading Drake London for shit, dude. You better offer me the damn moon and then some, because he's that type of guy.
It's interesting he has Kyle Pitts, too. Like,
That's what I was saying,
want to project, like, being back in on Kyle Pitts. I still like him, but it's still a fucking tight end for me. Like, I'm good. I would... Well, I'm not trading for Andrews in this situation. Like, I'm keeping London. It's a start 9, so you're starting Lamb, Chase Hill. Drake London's going to be your flex. That's a fucking dynamite wide receiver core right there. Yeah. Pickens is ancillary. Like, he's a decent enough player. But, like, I would trade Pickens for, like, an Njoku or an Evan Ingram if you didn't feel comfortable with Kyle Pitts as your only tight end. Like, if that wasn't your thing, or you're worried a little bit about Pitts, you know, like the fall off, or, you know, maybe that knee injury really fucked him up for life, which I don't think it did. But if that's the case, right, like George Pickens is the play where I go, like, can I buy a tight end that's just going to produce, like just going to put numbers out? Because I think you can with a George Pickens. He's got enough hype. People are like, oh, yeah, fuck, I'll give you David Njoku for him. That's the kind of move I do. I don't move Drake London to go get a tight end.
And I just want to give – I just want to kind of go full circle with this Senior Bowl start, right? For those of you that are not quite hip to exactly, you know, Drake London being early declare, not just that a young player, Drake London is younger than a lot of people that were just fucking playing at the Senior Bowl that we're talking about even taking right now. So
Yep.
this dude might finally. Well, I'm not going to project that he finally gets his quarterback. I know that the person behind center can't be any worse than the situation was at behind center, and I know factually that Arthur Smith out of town is better. So I know the situation's at least better, and it could be significantly better for a guy that has been winning as a young receiver in the NFL that has immense upside. So, Chemo, do yourself a favor. Don't make this trade. And if you do anything, I would actually be more into seeing if I could actually extract value out of Pitts. And then at that point, now I can reset and decide if I want to go back into tight end for Andrews or someone else.
Two other points I'll make here is that Andrews is a guy in Dynasty that you're just praying that you're hoping and praying that he holds his value and that it doesn't drop. Mm-hmm. Those are not the types of players that I trade for. I trade for players that I want them to gain value over the next year. I don't trade for guys that, in the best cases scenarios, I'm just asking, baby, that you don't fall off a map or you don't lose value because then I'm screwed.
Yeah.
Like, even in a compete and win now type of team, those are not the guys that I'm going to trade for. If I have them on my roster, fine, hold them, ride it out, man. But I'm not trading for Mark Andrews in this type of sense. If you want to go trade for what you're looking for as a tight end upgrade, hell, go offer somebody Kyle Pitts and George Pickens and go get Trey McBride. Go do something like that, or go after Sam Laporta. Go do that kind of stuff. And the other thing about it is with Pickens, like,
I knew we couldn't do it.
Pickens, when do you feel, because again, we're talking about a set your lineup type of league. When the hell do you feel good about putting Pickens into your damn lineup at this point? If you're talking about best ball formats, fine, hold him. Enjoy your spike weeks. Pickens this year, he was either fantastic and he won you your week, or he was dog shit. And there was no in between, man. So for me, go get rid of George Pickens. That's totally fine. Go get rid of Kyle Pitts. You want to be out on those guys? Go trade for Trey McBride. Get into that market.
Absolutely.
I love the fact,
Absolutely.
too, you're talking about Andrews and his value holding. Still, Keep Trade Cut has T.J. Hawkinson above him. T.J. Hawkinson, a guy who late December tore an ACL.
He's going to miss the entire
MCL.
2024 season, basically?
And
or
if he
majority of it.
And if he comes back early,
it's crazy.
We've seen. Wait till Friday. I drop some knowledge on y'all. But literally, like, if he comes and plays, we've seen there's revisionist history we can go back and look at and say it's not a good thing when guys come back too early from multi-ligament knee injuries. It just isn't. So it's
a hammer.
Look at Kyle Pitts. Look at Kyle Pitts this year.
Kyle. Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
I've got T.J. Hawkinson as my tight end 6. I've got Sammy Ballgame. I've got Trey McBride. I got Andrews, Kelsey, and Kincaid over Hawkinson, just to put it out there for people.
Mike just when Mike does stuff, he tries to like be, obnoxious with it. I forget where he put him in his dynasty ranks. It was like letting you know that he's screaming, even though he's in that picture right there, 38 behind his head. He's way low on him, man. Way out on him.
I'll tell you this too.
12, dude. Come on, bro.
As soon as Kyle Pitts gets a quarterback, I'm going to put Kyle Pitts above T.J. Hawkinson.
Bam. That's the other thing, man. Chemo, the other thing is we're talking all this about London. I'm very bullish on London. I'm still not quite as bullish on Kyle Pitts, but the situation getting better does apply to him too, and he's also still very young. I frankly, right now, like the way I value tight end, if you can't move and liquidate Pitts, I'm perfectly fine just seeing what happens there. I think the talent is immense still. So I'm not needing to double dip at tight end, man, personally.
I want to pull up one other thing for Chemo that like matters to me a ton, and this speaks to the type of elite upside at the tight end position. Would I care about guys, and I mentioned this was a big reason why I was over the moon, much less like the skill set and stuff, but why I was over the moon about Sam Laporta. If you want to access the elite upside at the tight end position, and you want to only look at like one damn metric, okay, then go look at yards per route run for a tight end against man coverage. Just go pull that up. And what you're going to see at the very top, and let's rattle off the leaderboard of yards per route run against man coverage for tight ends right now, boys.
Okay.
Number 1, George Kittle. 2, T.J. Hawkinson. 3, Evan Ingram. 4, David Njoku. Like this list? It's a good list. Number 5, Sam Laporta. Number 6 on that damn list, and his ceiling is still just as high as the day he got drafted. Number 6 on that list this year, Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of the advanced metrics for Kyle Pitts are tremendous, like unrealized air yards. I mean, we're praying, man. We're praying. We got the start, right? We got rid of Arthur.
Mm-hmm.
We got the start now. Hopefully we can get a quarterback that can actually hit him. I mean, Kyle Pitts definitely still has immense upside as a talent. There's no doubt in my mind, Debro.
Yep.
I'm with you on that.
Dude, I mean, like, because just that one metric, like, just to round out the top 10, just to completely put a bow on this
give
for
the
everybody.
Picture. Yeah.
Travis Kelce is 6, Jake Ferguson, Trey McBride, Mark Andrews. That's your top 10. Tell me that that one damn metric doesn't hold water about elite upside for tight end.
It does.
I really thought you were going to go with the reason you loved Sam Laporta is because 3 years ago I'm screaming that people should pay attention to Sam Laporta, and nobody wanted to fucking listen at that time.
Well, I think Ray G was going to watch video on him this week off of your recommendation.
Finally he's good.
I would think off of the film he might put him at tight end
old
one.
combos.
Might put him at tight end 1. You know, that'd be awesome.
Derek, if you love Sam Laporta, all right, all I got to say is you can get a jump start. You can join the club. All right, let's be Luke Lachey fanboys, all right? You're gonna
is this your Iowa guy we taled about a few months ago?
You're gonna love him.
At a tight end U, baby. Tight end U.
And he is related to Nick Lachey of 98 Degrees.
Oh, no.
Right.
Oh, jeez.
Right. You thought Sammy Ballgame was an awesome nickname. Just wait till we get 98 Degrees up in here.
Tight end 1 already, baby.
I will say, though,
put him up there.
the only thing that worries me a little bit is when we get tight ends that have a lot of clout with, the celebrity stuff mixed in, especially like that Lachey. We saw what happened with Swift and Kelce. Might be a little bit nervous on this all of a sudden, you know.
It's going to be fine. Trust me. 98 Degrees still slaps.
My
today.
favorite thing, and this is a perfect way to go out. When Mike tells you trust me, y'all better pray because there's a lot of things that could go wrong when Mike tells you trust me. Listen, man, D-Bro, honestly, you to give us almost 2 hours of your time, dude. Seriously, appreciate that. Love having you on. Every time D-Bro comes on, it's a fucking blast. It's an epic show. Office Depot, excellent show. Appreciate it. D-Bro, plug your stuff, and we'll get you out of here, buddy.
All the things and stuff, Fantasy Bros, baby. I'm working on all my positional rookie primers and stuff, so I'll have full scouting reports for all the guys and stuff. I'm getting through the class right now. I'm on Jane Daniels, but that's really that's my baby, man. So all the rookie content is in the works. I'm in the lab right now. Also, teasing it, man. Tomorrow, myself and Thor Nystrom are going to announce a new project we're going to have in the works, baby. So stay tuned. Follow me on Twitter, man. We're going to announce it tomorrow, baby.
Go follow him on Twitter. Great follow. Go check him out on Fantasy Pros. One of the things I can confidently say is I have yet to find someone. There's people in that range, but it's so elite. Like you talk about all those metrics. D-Bro is one of the hardest workers in the space, and when he puts stuff out, it's significantly worth the time. Go follow everything he's doing if you're probably not already doing it. Act like we have a bigger following than him. So if you're not, do it though, man.
Because we get him to let his beard down, right?
Yeah,
he
man.
To say what he wants.
Let me get let me get the after hours, D-Bro. You know, look at that swag, man.
Let's go. Thanks, Derek. Every time you come on, man, you're one of the coolest in the space. Love having you on.
I love you guys, man. It's a fucking blast, man. We could sit here and talk for 4 hours, dude. It wouldn't be a problem.
And listen, next year as South Harmon CEO, I'm gonna make sure that Adam and I's ass is down at the Senior Bowl.
Hey, you know what? I meant there was a comment on here. Next year is 100% happening, no matter what. If I may just have to call Fantasy Pros and be like, D-Bro said I could come with y'all, so we'll see. We'll figure it out.
Hey, man, look, we'll make room at the dojo for you, baby. Come on, let's go.
I love it, man. We'll see you guys back here, same time, same place, next Wednesday for the AMA. We're out of this thing. Love y'all. Peace.